Chief Executive of the Airport. So thank you very much for having me here. And I just wanted to declare two conflicts of interest. The first one's the one just mentioned. I was a candidate last election. I stood in Hackney North and Stoke Newington against Diane Abbott. I lost by 19,000 votes. But the good news from your point of view is I lost by 4,000 votes for the Liberal Democrat candidate as well. So I'm trying to pull around for you guys. You're sorry for me. I get the sympathy there as well. The other conflict, of course, is obviously I work for aviation. I'm paid to say what I'm about to say, but I am passionate. I'm a passionate believer in what I say as well. I love aviation. I love flying. I live under a flight path in South London. I'm the only person in the world who looks at the sky and says, I want more planes going over my house. I absolutely love what they do, the technological achievements of it, but also what it represents. You know, the more people you have flying, the more businesses taking place, the more holiday makers there are, the more friends and relatives that are being visited in the UK and around the world. I passionately believe in aviation. So you're going to get a very unsubtle version of APD in this debate from me, I'm afraid. I think it's far too high and needs to come down. So I thought I'd divide what I'm about to say into three main areas. One is, what are the hikes? It's set the debate in context. Then, what are the impacts of those hikes in terms of the economy? A little bit in terms of the effects on BME communities, but I'm sure that will come out in the debate later as well. And then what we need to do about it. What should happen to APD going forward so that BME communities benefit as well as the wider economy. So the first point to make really is the hikes themselves and what's been going on. Well, set in context, since 1994-95, Ken Clarke, the then Conservative Chancellor, brought in air passenger duty. It came in at £5 for EU flights, and £10 for non-EU flights, and it was seen as an environmental tax. Since then, that's gone out the window. It's been seen totally as a tax raising revenue, tax revenue raising duty. In the last 4 or 5 years, between 2007 to 2010, it's gone up 140% for short-haul flights, 325% for long-haul flights. It's got to a point now that if you want to fly to the Caribbean, you're a family of 4, you're going to be paying £300 in air passenger duty and that's the lowest rate you can pay. So if you're a premium economy, that's £600. That is a punitive level of taxation. If you look forward, we've got a double inflation increase coming up in the next budget. We've got an inflation increase for the year after that, and if you look at the figures for 2015-16, air passenger duty tax revenue is going to be going up 55%. Now I looked through the Office of Budget Responsibilities figures at the last November statement. I think there's only 2 or 3 areas in the whole of the economy that are going up anywhere near that rate, and we're one of them. So we've got this history of shooting up massively over time and going up again going forward. The other thing to bear in mind is that aviation this year joined the EU emissions trading scheme. And what that means is that there's another charge on aviation. We support that charge as it is, because it does deal with environmental impacts in terms of the continent. But it's another charge, which means everyone in this room will be paying €3 or €4 additional from the end of this year, next year, to cover for that. And the forecast going forward show that's going to increase massively to around €40, according to Standard & Poor's and other analysts, by the end of the decade. So that £500 family of 4 flight to America is coming, and it's not that far away. So a high aviation tax going up, and it's actually the highest in the world, and I'll come back to that a little bit later. So what's the effects on these massive levels of air passenger duty? I thought I'd look at 3 different impacts. One's the regional impact, the national impact, and the international impact. Regionally, we've got Graham here from Newcastle. These airports are absolutely crucial to regional economies. They rely on them to trade, for tourism, for a whole variety, for exports and imports. This is what Trevor Mann, the Senior Vice President for Manufacturing Europe for Nissan, says. Nissan have significant operations across dozens of countries, and staff from our Sunderland plant are often required to carry out essential work, and of course we've maintained strong links with Japan since Nissan arrived in the North East in 1984. Frequent and reliable air transport is therefore essential for a global business like ours. I've got a whole load of places around the country. I can just pick one out at random. Liverpool. Liverpool services are indispensable for both Liverpool City region and the Greater North West. Constitutes a key asset within a wider city port development, creating 21,000 new jobs and contributing £6.1 billion in gross value added to the city regional economy by 2020. That's the Liverpool Chamber of Commerce, Jack Stopworth, the Chief Executive there. And I can get a whole list of these things, how important these airports are to the regional economies. Then you look at the national level, how important it is to the country as a whole. UK's government's National Infrastructure Plan came out last November. Airports and ports, the gateway to international trade. Government wants to see a successful aviation sector and will develop a sustainable framework for UK aviation. The Prime Minister David Cameron says he wants the UK to be a top 5 tourist destination, and we're currently 15 million behind on that if we want to be top 5, if we want to close on Italy. He says he wants to be open for business. He wants to create thousands of aerospace jobs. And I could list a whole load of national things that we're supposed to be doing and the UK is supposed to help with. How on earth can raising APD to the level they're going to raise it help achieve those goals? And to come back to the regional point, the government recognised last November with Belfast that it was losing lots of flights, and Belfast was losing flights to Dublin because of the high levels of their passenger duty. So they reduced that rate, and they reduced that rate, and since that's been happening, lo and behold, Belfast has benefited from it. So they accept there's a real problem in terms of how it affects the regional economy and how it affects the national economy. But then we have to look at the international dimension as well. If you look at how we compare to our EU partners, UK APD is 8.5 times more than the EU average. It's 8.5 times more at the standard business rate, more than double at the lower rate. Other countries in Europe have got rid of it altogether. So Holland's got rid of it, Belgium, Denmark, Malta. France, if you fly to America, family of four, it's £240. Family of four flying from France pays £14.50. Think of that. If you compare £240 to £14.50 for exactly the same service, very hard to defend that. British Chambers of Commerce have done some work on the effect of APD on the national economy. To 2020, we lose £3 billion of investment, we lose 71,000 jobs. The World Tourism and Travel Council came up with a survey yesterday that showed the effects of APD, and they used figures of 91,000 jobs and £4 billion. The interesting thing about these numbers is that no one disputes them. So no one in this room and no one in the government is going to turn around to me and say, oh, you're conflating the issue, you're putting up spurious figures. Everyone accepts APD has an effect on the economy, but no one does anything about it, but it is happening. So you've had the regional level, the national level, the international level. There's also an issue of international connectivity, and that is that countries now simply aren't flying to the UK because of little APD. So you have an airline saying, we're not going to fly to Manchester or to Gatwick or to Liverpool because the UK is so pivotally expensive for our market, and I think, Graham, you might have some words to say about that as well in your part. So there's a whole range of reasons why APD has gone up and should go up deeper. And the Caribbean, I just mentioned, you know, a key issue for the BME communities. 2 million tourist jobs rely on it, on aviation, 11% work the workforce, 30% of the GDP. Since APD shot up, they've lost 10% of visitors in 2010, whilst other countries are increasing their visits to BME countries like the Caribbean. So no one can dispute this is having an effect. So what do we do going forward? Well, it's very simple. Thwart the APD increase. Aviation has to pay its way, both in terms of the economy and in terms of the environment. So we're not saying cut it, we're not saying reduce our contribution, but don't put it up any further. So don't have the double inflation increase. As EU ETS revenue start to flow in, reduce APD to take account of those, so that it reduces, so APD plus the EU ETS revenues is exactly the same. So we're still paying our way, but we're not making it even harder for us to trade. And the final point I'd make really is to do with going forward generally about supporting aviation. It is crucial to the economy, it's crucial to connectivity, it's crucial to holidays and tourism and so on. We joined a campaign called A Fair Tax on Flying. It's airlines, it's airports, it's tourism bodies, it's businesses relying on this sector. We're all making the case, don't make it any harder for this crucial sector, UK PLC. So I hope that sets the frame. I hope it puts in train some of the issues we want to talk about. And I'll just say, do support aviation. Liberal Democrats have got to support this sector because it is vital for connectivity and jobs and so on. And if you do that, you'll also make my job and my life better because I have more planes flying over my house. So thank you very much.